as I said, welcome to tonight's Curious Minds event. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to a very special guest, Caroline, who is from 3M. So it's great to have you here, Caroline. Now, for many of you, you may not know Caroline. Caroline is a registered nurse with a degree and postgraduate degree in critical care from the University of Sydney. Caroline has worked in the hospital and healthcare industry for 30 years as an intensive care nurse, as a clinical nurse consultant, and as a clinical nurse educator. This experience allowed Caroline to build expertise in looking at and solving problems, eventually leading to a career in research, design, and consulting. Caroline currently works for 3M, where she is the Australian, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia subject matter expert for 3M vascular access products. So during her time with 3M, she has won the 2019 Circle of Technical Excellence and Innovation Award, and more recently, the Customer at the Core Leadership Award. So that's fantastic. It's great to have you here, and we're all super excited to hear more about solving real life problems and saving lives. So I'll hand you over now to Caroline.
Oh, thanks, Kate. That's really lovely. And I feel very humbled and very special to be invited here tonight to talk to you all about a project that I was working on back in 2019 and really hoping to inspire you girls tonight to reach for the stars. Tonight I'm going to talk about a dressing that I created for an IV cannula, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But before I do that, I want to just give you a bit of background on who I am so you can understand, where I've come from and how I got to where I am now. So apologies for the low pixelation in these photos, but back then technology isn't what it is now with cameras, and that's why they're so poor. But anyway, I grew up, it's sort of a bit unusual. I grew up in Sydney, but a rural part of Sydney, and I grew up on an orchard, and I spent all my summer holidays picking peaches and selling them by the roadside, and that's what helped our family get through. We really didn't have a lot of money. But we were generally happy and we all worked together to sort of get by. So very humble beginnings, definitely didn't have everything rolled out for me. And believe it or not, I was a really shy girl. I wouldn't even look people in the eyes, and I just didn't interact with many people. Very, very quiet and shy. You see, everyone can change. And I wasn't the brightest kid at school. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that I wasn't struggling. I just was in the main pack, just normal average intelligence. I wasn't in the top classes, and I was just in that middle group. And I want to make this clear to you girls, you don't have to be the ducks of the school or in the top classes or getting a great ATAR to succeed in life. What you need is a desire to learn and to find that thing which makes you feel on fire, makes you feel dynamic, it makes you feel like you really want to engage and get into it and you love it. And if you've got that, you can achieve anything in life. You don't have to be brilliant, and I don't think I am brilliant. I think I'm just average intelligence, but I've got into a place where I really love what I do, and that's where I make the difference. So I really encourage you to find what really sparks that fire inside you. So when I went to school, STEM wasn't a thing. It was not even a concept that girls would have any careers in STEM much. We had things like home ec and textiles available to us, which was pretty ordinary. But I did absolutely adore biology. I loved anatomy and physiology, and I loved the environment, how it all works symbiotically together. That really inspired me. And I worked really hard in science, and I decided that I wanted to have a career as a scientist. However, I didn't have the maths to do that. I wasn't clever enough in maths, and my parents were unqualified people, so they didn't have the skills to help me, nor did they have the financial means to support any tutoring. So what did I decide to do? I decided to do a degree in applied science, which was nursing. I thought, Yeah, that gives me all the anatomy and physiology, which I really love. And then on top of that, I have a really broad platform in which I can launch off and do lots of different things. So that was probably a really good choice for me to make. And I don't regret it one bit. I'm glad I did nursing. I went to Sydney University and I did 3 years there before becoming an ICU nurse. And I was there for about 10 years. And even then, I got a bit bored in ICU. I went to London and I worked there for a year in ICU and did a lot of travel. And then I came back and I decided, right, I've done my Bachelor of Critical Care as well. I've done my years in ICU and I've been everywhere. Might be time for the next chapter, which was my family. And here they are. I planned on 2 children. We had a couple of happy accidents and I ended up with 4. God love them. So my husband and 4 children is my family, and I have 2 beautiful dogs. That's mother and son that you see there. That's Zoe and Zeus, Zeus in the red jumper. And Zoe's just had a second litter of little puppies, which are now nearly 6 weeks old. And they are a delight running around the house. Absolutely love it at the moment. So they kept me at home for quite a bit. There's a 9-year difference between the eldest and the youngest. So I was in and out doing lots of different things in nursing, just part-time. But once the kids got just that little bit older and more independent, I was ready to launch back into my career. So I got this wonderful job for a doctor in sleep medicine. And he actually invented the CPAP mask for people with sleep apnea. And he was a very clever man, and he was very insightful, and he inspired me actually to think outside the box and to start innovating and going against all the people who were saying, oh, that will never work, or that's not going to be okay. No one's interested in that, and just pushing past those barriers to really achieve. But he's an elderly man now, so that job sort of became, I realised it was not going to go anywhere because he was going to be retiring very soon. So I then launched into 3M. 3M is the most awesome company I have ever worked for. If you love science, 3M is the place to go. They encourage you, actually they require you to spend 15% of your day working in the labs trying to innovate and invent things. You can just play with whatever you want to play with. They will support you in any way that you want to. And they will just allow you to buy what you need to buy, and they buy all the equipment that you need to do the testing, and they just let you go. And that's just wonderful. And 3M is not just healthcare. As you know, 3M make thousands of products out there. And those products I have got science behind each and every one. So I'm learning new things all the time, which is really exciting. So now that we've covered a little bit about me, I want to get into the project that I did in 2019 and share that with you. I'm really excited to be sharing that with you tonight. So when you have a cannula put in, and I'm pretty sure that there's a good portion of you here tonight that have actually had a cannula put in yourselves. Most of you will know this device. 75 to 80% of all patients will have one in the hospital, and it goes by a few names. You might know it as a cannula or an IV or a drip. Tonight I'll be using the word cannula, and that's used to deliver medications or IV fluids or blood or other solutions straight into the venous system. And that's a really quick way of getting treatment into your body. So that's why it's very favoured. If you take something orally or by mouth, it takes a lot longer for that action. So IV is a good way of getting a quick action. And once that cannula is inserted into the hand or the arm or wherever, it needs a covering put on it, which is called an IV dressing, which you can see in the picture there. And that is a transparent dressing that's put on to protect it from infection and to stop it being pulled out or fall out. So looking at these pictures here, just a couple of random pictures off Google of accident sites, I think you can understand that when paramedics go to these sorts of scenes or many other sorts of different scenes, they're up against some pretty challenging environments to put cannulas in. Now, if I told you that the very thing used to save your life was the very thing that killed you, that'd be pretty scary, right? But the actual fact is that's true. These environments are disgusting. They are dark, they're dirty, there's blood, broken glass, engine oil, all sorts of contaminated products around when you're trying to put a cannula in. And this is a risk of infection when you put one of these in. So because of this, the Australian government has created a new policy, or it's actually not new, it's been around for a while, that any cannula placed in this emergency situation should be removed and replaced within 24 hours. And that's to stop infection in that line, right? And then you put a new one in. So you know it's been put in under clean conditions and it's safe. So what's going wrong? Well, basically, they look the same. A hospital inserted cannula looks just the same as an ambulance inserted cannula. They're both the same cannula types in many cases, and they're both the same dressing. Now, what happens when a patient comes in via ambulance into the hospital? They're rushed into the ED or the emergency department, and they're being stabilised. There's a lot going on usually. So the cannula is really the last thing on their list to think about. They've got access to their venous system, so that's all they care about, and they're busy doing a whole lot of other things. And unfortunately, the ambulance rarely document, or sometimes they miss the documentation. I shouldn't say rarely, that's a bit unfair, but often they miss the documentation. So once they get into the hospital, they're treated, they're stabilised, they're sent off to the ward, and they've got this cannula in, and the nurses on the ward go, well, who put this one in? And there's nothing to tell them. They're confused. Sometimes they might have 2 or 3 cannulas in, and they don't know which one was put in by ambulance. So there's a bit of a gap there. If you get a bloodstream infection, the CDC claim that you've got about a 25% chance of death. A bloodstream infection is when the bacteria get into your bloodstream, and these cannulas are a highway for bacteria to get straight into your bloodstream. They're really quite serious, and we want to avoid them. And people are dying every year in Australia from these bloodstream infections, and they are totally preventable. So what do? Well, really simple at the end of the day. We created a dressing, the same dressing the ambulance already used, but we placed the word emergency on it. So it might seem fairly simple, but the reality is it wasn't all that simple to pull off. We had to work out what word we were going to use, where the text would be printed, how were we going to manufacture it, because it's not as simple as typing in a word and it just prints out. We had to actually purchase a printer head that got put onto the manufacturing line. The manufacturing line had to be stopped for the printer head to be placed on, and then they ran it, and then the printer head had to be taken off to just go on with printing these dressings again. It all required a lot of technology behind it and some resources. And then we had to work out how many dressings we were going to need. Was the ink going to leak through to the skin and cause regulatory issues with the TGA, which is the Therapeutic Goods Association? All these sorts of things had to be taken into consideration, and it was complex. So how did we do it? Firstly, we worked with paramedics and clinicians. We did lots of journey mapping, and we did lots of consultation with the people at the coalface. And we did this for a number of reasons. Firstly, we had to get an idea of where it was going to work, how it was going to work, what word to put on it, where to put it on the dressing, if it was going to be complied with. There were a whole range of questions around this. How many dressings they used in a year, so we could get the numbers. So for a product like this that we wanted manufactured specifically for Australia, we need to get what's called buy-in, and the customer needs to buy into the idea. So we need to get agreement from them that they're going to buy the product. And they actually agreed to buy the product, and that was really helpful for us when we went back to the business. You can imagine if you just manufactured it, took it to them, and they went, oh no, thanks, we don't want that. That would be a bit of a disaster. We spent a lot of money and really went nowhere. So that was a buy-in from the customer and a lot of help and their engagement and involvement in the process. And the next thing we had to do was get buy-in from the business. So we talked a lot with Germany, where the dressings are actually manufactured, and also the US, who make the decision about whether it's a go or a no-go. And this conversation with them went back and forth for over a year. And we talked to them about whether it was worth doing or not, and giving them all the numbers and the statistics and the buy-in from the customers. And very happily, they said yes. They said, we'll give it a red hot go, which is typical 3M. They're really supportive. A patent was created, and that patent is in my name, but it is owned by 3M. That's totally fine. I'm happy with that. The dressings were then created and shipped to Australia, all within 18 months of starting the project. Absolute amazing timeline there. It usually takes a lot longer. And happily, there were 2 forward orders, which means there were 2 states, that was Queensland and New South Wales, that had already put in orders for that dressing before it landed at port, which is a first for healthcare. So that was really a proud moment. Then we had to get ready for launch. And we did this fun video. We did lots of brochures. They weren't so fun, but we did this great fun video, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And we got 2 paramedics who volunteered their day and their ambulance to come and shoot, and myself and our sales rep from Canberra, Shireen there, the one that's all bloodied up, she came to be the patient for the day. And we had a great day filming this video to try and help clinicians understand the importance of why you should remove these at-risk dressings and cannulas. So I'm now going to play this for you. Hats off to Shireen for actually getting a cannula in for real. That was dedication to the job, that's for sure. So fast forward to 2020 in February, just before the pandemic hit. I won the award, as Kate was saying before, for technical excellence and innovation. It was a really proud moment, and I felt very humbled. But I do want to stress that I did not do this on my own. There was a team of people that were behind me, helping and supporting me all the way. And you can't do these sorts of things on your own. The best way is to do it with a group, and to do it collaboratively and get everyone on board for that maximum output. And I was I felt a little bit slack being up there on my own. I felt that I would like the whole team up there, but you know, that's what it is. So whilst it's an honour to receive the award, I have to say that it's not the driver that inspires me to create. At my core, I am still a nurse, and I love the thought that I'm potentially saving lives out there. The PA hospital, which is Princess Alexandra in Brisbane, had actually tracked the number of dressings that were removed, that were ambulance inserted, before this emergency dressing came out, and it was about 50%. So recently I spoke to them, and they said it's almost 100% now. So that is exactly what we wanted. They're doing some research on the data, but it's all been delayed thanks to COVID, like a lot of things. But that should be coming out soon with some verification. I really am happy that this is potentially out there right now saving lives. It is used around Australia in most states. I think Victoria and South Australia are the only 2 not using it for different reasons, but we're hoping to get them on board soon. Also hoping to get other countries on board, but COVID again, we have to let everything settle down before we can get back to our usual activities. Very interesting this year in January, the new Infusion Nurses Society standards and guidelines were released. Now, they're the gold standard for the world. They're the most detailed guidelines of best practice, and they had changed the wording from consider labelling a emergency inserted cannula to label an emergency inserted cannula. And I am 100% sure that they made that change because they were aware of this dressing that is now available in Australia. So You know, as an average person, as I said, just an average girl that became a nurse and then just jumped into different roles, and just the thing I do is that I solve problems, and I do encourage you to find something that you love, and I love to solve problems, and I am still inventing. I've got some more projects on the go, and I totally love what I do. And I'm really hoping that I inspire you all to get out there and find that thing that sparks joy, and just embrace life, because the world's waiting for you. And if you want to do it, you can achieve anything. And, you know, congratulations on joining this STEM group. And I hope you get, you know, the value out of it that I know that you will be. So that's my presentation for tonight. Perhaps somebody or anybody would like to ask some questions. I'm available.
Fantastic. Look, thank you so much, Caroline. That was wonderful to hear. I was listening to every word and just, really processing what is perhaps a simple concept, but all the difficulties that went into what you were saying about getting the right print, or the right, the right placement of, the labeling the emergency dressing. So it's a bit hard for all of the students online to give you a round of applause, but thank you. It's been wonderful to have
I can hear it. I can hear it. Thanks, girls.
So we do have some questions, absolutely, and I would encourage the girls or the students to just put the questions into the chat function, and Tony and I saw Kelsey pop in. We're happy to read some of them out just to kickstart them. But one of the first questions that was put forward from Sarah is, how did you actually know what you wanted to do, what you wanted to get into, and in particular nursing when you were younger? Did you think of other things at the same time? Was it a toss-up between other career paths, or were you keen for nursing to begin with?
No, I wanted to be a scientist. And I was saying that I didn't have the maths to get into a Bachelor of Science. So I decided to do a Bachelor of Applied Science, which is nursing. And I thought that platform would give me all that anatomy and physiology that I really loved, and give me a nice wide platform that I could find my way into science from there, which I have. Here I am.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think what we were talking earlier this evening was that sometimes what you end up doing later in life is what you really want to do. But sometimes there is that journey. You don't get into what you want to do immediately.
That's right. And maybe I wouldn't have been right if I'd have got into a Bachelor of Science at that age. You know, maybe I've walked the journey that I needed to walk. Maybe I needed that maturity and age on me to really grow and develop.
Agree. Now, another question that was put forward was about 3M. How did you actually find out about 3M and find that job that, you talk so passionately about?
Yeah, so I've known about 3M for a long time because I was using their products when I was nursing, and I really always thought that 3M were a great quality product. But I was actually looking for another job, and I'd reached out to a number of recruitment consultants, and one of them rang up with this job, and I said, yeah, that sounds exactly what I was looking for. Didn't know such a job existed. And because 3M is different to most healthcare companies in that it has many other businesses, they have what is called a technical role, which no other healthcare company has, because all of our technical people are like engineers and scientists. So they get nurses in to take on that technical role in healthcare. So it was very niche, but absolutely perfect for me. Yeah.
Good to hear. And again, sometimes, as you say, that journey gives you the skills you need to be at the end in the place that you want to be. So
exactly.
Moving along, from Melissa, keeps on jumping, hang on. What other things have you researched and experimented with at 3M? Are you able to give us some inside information?
Some of them are a bit secret, so I can't say. I have put in a few other invention submissions for just small modifications on products. Some simple things like a ruler on the packaging so that people can measure things. Like when you've got a line in, particularly in like what we call a central line, it goes into a major vein. They have to measure it with a ruler to make sure that it doesn't migrate or move in and out. It stays in position. So we had some paper inside, and I said, why don't we make a ruler inside so that they can have a sterile ruler they can actually use at the time when they're changing the dressing to measure it. Little things like that. I had an invention for a tourniquet, different type of tourniquet. They just put that one on the shelf, so that failed, but that's okay. That's okay. You never know. They may come back to that. Well, you see, we have got the patent for printing on the dressing. So we can, in fact, print anything on a dressing, not just that word. And I suggested pre-COVID, actually, to put QR codes on the dressing that would link to a video for application and removal. So at the point of care, a nurse can just put their phone against the QR code and see how to apply or remove that dressing. So there's a few other things like that. And then I've got some really secret stuff I can't talk about. I'd love to share, but I can't. It's really groundbreaking if it works. If it works, your fingers crossed.
We'll have to stay tuned for next year. We'll have to get you back for part 2. Yeah. Okay, moving along with some more questions. Did you ever have any moments where you were unsure about where you were heading with your career?
Yes, I did. And it was around about the time I had kids. And as you saw, I have a lot of them. And I was wondering whether I was ever going to get back into the career, whether I was going to climb the ladder and get into a proper career, having had such a long period out. I was in and out part-time, but it really doesn't make any difference. They like to see you sort of working constantly. But at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. And I did get asked when I started at 3M, you haven't worked clinically for such a long time. And I said, yes, that's true. However, I haven't forgotten a lot of that stuff, and people's bodies and anatomy hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed is technology. And I can get up to speed on that real quick. And they just went, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. And it was okay. So children slowed down my career, but they certainly didn't stop it. I've just gone from strength to strength since I had kids. And in some ways, I think the kids helped me be a better worker, because I just don't fuss with all that extra noise now that I might have before kids. You sort of get down to the brass tacks as a mother. You just sort of cut through all that rubbish. Yeah, and you become very efficient at doing everything because you have to.
Understand. Was there ever a point where you wanted to give up, where it was just, was there a point where perhaps you thought you'd just settle for what you were doing because it was all too hard? Or no. Would you say deep down there was that resilience to just keep going?
I didn't want to be a mother, just a mother. I'm happy to be a mother, but not just a mother. And I am a professional in my own right. And I'm an intelligent person in my own right. As I said, not brilliant, but intelligent enough to want to learn something. I'm always hungry to learn and to do something more. And as soon as I've done a course, I want to do another course. Even if they're little short courses, I really like to challenge my mind and just keep learning. Learning is linear. You just keep learning through your life. And that's the important thing. There's always something new to learn. And that's what I enjoy.
Here's another question. How long did it take you to figure out exactly what you wanted to do? At what age can we expect to have a fixed, passionate idea about what we want to do?
Oh, that's a tough one. And I think that's very much individualised. You know, you speak to some kids and they'll say, I want to be an orthopaedic surgeon at 6, and others want to be a famous soccer player. That realisation comes for different people at different times, I think. I think in school I knew that I just loved science and particularly biology, and I wanted a career around that. So I think the best advice I could give would be find what really lights that fire inside of you and you enjoy doing, and just stick to that, or as close to that as you can be, and life will take you where you need to go. Some people are very focused and some are not, and I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do. I sort of bumbled along, but I ended up where I needed to be. And yeah.
And I suppose when you were looking at nursing or your applied science, you probably didn't have in your mind that you were going to be a researcher looking for ways to improve, the medicine or the nursing field with your
No,
band.
no.
So it developed over time as you got experience.
Exactly. And you, as you learn something new, that's just, you're building on that foundation all the time and just changing yourself and, reimagining what you can do with the world. And as time goes on, the other thing was that when I was 18, half of the jobs that are available now were not there. And that's the same for you girls out there. Like, by the time you're my age, heaven forbid, in my 50s, there will be jobs that are not available right now. So you need to just go with it, stick with what you love and enjoy doing, and it will happen in the way it's supposed to. I mean, I just was starting on computers in high school. They were just coming out. We had the old DOS. I mean, that's how far back I go.
Oh gosh, I think some of us can remember some of those times as well.
Yeah.
Getting back to 3M, what did you require to get the job in 3M? Or if some of the girls or students are interested in 3M, what sort of qualities or knowledge or education would they need?
Yeah, that's a good question. And 3M are really dynamic in the way that they hire people. So yes, they're looking for a registered nurse for the healthcare, but it depends on what business it is. And like, for example, if you're looking at reflective materials, they're probably looking for an engineer. If they're looking at food safety, they're probably looking for a microbiologist. It just depends. But apart from that founding sort of qualification, they're looking for people who are go-getters. They've got that ability to sort of think outside the square. They're interested to learn. They have applied themselves to lots of different things. I had got some qualifications in regulatory stuff, and they love that because then I understand all the quality systems. They like that broad range of experience that I had. So they're looking for people, you've got to remember, if you're going to be a great employee, apart from having that qualification, there are things that are not requiring a qualification that are really important. Interest in learning, turning up on time, team player, really good collaborative worker, a good person that's trying to solve problems and help people. They're really important qualities to have and really valuable in the workplace. And certainly 3M's looking for that sort of behaviour, because that's what makes a good employee.
On a slightly different note then, and perhaps during your career or time at 3M, have you ever found any, have you experienced any sexism or being a female in a research role? Have you ever come across anything that's been challenging?
I have to say no. For me personally, I've had a really good run. 3M is very strong with diversity and inclusion, and we are a multicultural, very diverse group of people, and we all work together so harmoniously. There is never even a sniff of anything like that. Everyone is valued for the person that they are. Particularly in that technical level, we are very multicultural and very diverse, lots of women, and women are in charge just as much as men. It's almost half-half. So in 3M, absolutely has been perfect. Everywhere, well, like in nursing, it's been largely female dominated. So it might be a bit different now in the clinical space because there's more men doing nursing and in healthcare. I think men sometimes get more opportunity to go up the ladder because they don't drop out and have children, and they have that opportunity to move on. But personally, I haven't had that experience, but I know it's happened to some, and it can be quite challenging. But there's so much focus now, like with International Women's Day. Women are finally getting a voice. And we're getting there slowly but surely.
Yes, the tide has turned. So fantastic. I mean, that's great to hear that it's been a positive experience for yourself. We've got a few comments here. People want to come back. Some of our students want you back next year so we can find out some more information about your secret projects.
I'd love to share it. It's
intriguing.
Really, it's world breaking if it works.
Oh, you'll have to get another award. We'll have to invite you back and we'll have to talk about the next award. There's a few comments here about how brilliant you are and perhaps you suffer from imposter syndrome because you are indeed, what you're talking about right now is brilliant and inspiring. And that's what it's all about, just giving your best, and it's amazing what your best can do. And I think you're very evident of that. Another question then relates back to the pandemic that we have recently and perhaps are still going through. How has the pandemic affected your career? Have you found new ideas actually coming as a result of COVID-19, or have things changed?
Yes, good question. Yes, it has impacted us, not for the better. When all the hospitals shut down, we couldn't go out and visit customers. It made us very agile, actually, and we've created lots of learning platforms. We got all of that sort of virtual learning up to speed, which was terrific from that sense. And we're now training people virtually, which I don't think is as good as face-to-face, but it's better than nothing. And that's excellent for regional people who just don't have access to the resources. So I think from that perspective, it's been great. For us, though, we haven't been able to get out and about and speak to our customers the same. I like to go out and talk to clinicians and find what their pain points are so that I can start planning and inventing more things. But during the pandemic, I was sitting in bed one morning with my cup of coffee, and I was looking out the window and thinking, what's a problem I can fix? And then I thought, oh, I've got it. And that's my next project, which I'm sorry, can't talk about. But so the pandemic did allow me downtime to think. So I was normally very, very busy, and there's been lots and lots of travel. I normally travel all around Australia, New Zealand and Asia, but I haven't been able to do any of that. So it has given me that time to just think and imagine and plan. So now that the borders are starting to open up again, the travel will come, and I've got lots of jobs that I need to do. Asia, don't know much about healthcare, or my Asia 3M counterparts, they're not clinicians like me, so they really are struggling, and I need to get over there at some point and help those countries. But there's economic pressures now post-COVID, and this is our biggest challenge, that the government spent a lot of money managing our country during COVID. It was a necessary evil. Something had to be done. And more money spent on PPE than ever before, and will go on into the future, I imagine. All the testing, there's about $200 a person, I believe, to test for COVID. That's all got to be clawed back. So we're facing some economic challenges there in the company now because people are looking to cost cut. Yeah, so we've had some ups and we've had some downs. Yeah.
Learnings along the way.
Yes.
Moving along, and there's a few more questions to go if you're still happy to keep talking. Work experience. Did you do work experience? And if you did, was it to do with science? Did you do work experience?
Yes, at school. Yes, I did. And I did nursing, actually. I decided that maternity was definitely not for me. I never wanted to be a midwife, and I don't regret that for 1 minute. But yes, I thought, yes, this could be interesting, you know, seeing all the things that go wrong with patients. And I do love people deep down. I do care for people a lot. So that part of me, and particularly the elderly, I love the oldies. They've got a lot to give, and I really love caring for them. So yes, I did that, and that sort of cemented that was possibly an avenue I should take. It was worthwhile.
An extension then of work experience, does 3M offer work experience? Do you ever see young, keen students doing work experience at 3M?
Yes, I do from time to time. We haven't had them since COVID, of course, but yes, I have seen them. So I do believe that it's possible.
A lot of these larger organisations, well, a lot of organisations would open themselves up for experience.
The main office is in Sydney, yeah, so that's would be where.
Is 3M anywhere else in Australia?
Yes, it's in every state except for Tasmania and Northern Territory.
Okay.
But they're very small.
Has your career as an ICU nurse and at 3M allowed you opportunities to travel overseas? So you've touched upon that you do lots of travel.
Yes, I travel a lot with 3M, and I was very fortunate in 2019 to go to the States and meet all my colleagues over there that I work with globally. That was wonderful. And we went on to a conference down in Las Vegas. So I had some party time down in Las Vegas. I even won some money, about $500 on the pokies. And then they were really lovely, and they took me on a road trip with a doctor from Switzerland, and we went right across to Sedona and the Grand Canyon, and then I flew home from Arizona. That was wonderful. That was all paid and supported by 3M, and my colleague let me stay in his house in Minnesota, so that was really lovely. I got to spend time with him and his family. They're like a big family group over there in Minnesota. Could never live there, too cold. You know, it goes down to minus 40, forget that. But now I believe that we've changed, that if there's a global position that comes up, that I can now apply for it and stay in Australia. So that's a really great improvement. And yes, I've been elevated so that underneath the US guys, I'm the next in line, the next go-to from the US people. So that's really wonderful to hear. But yes, I've been to Singapore, and I've been to Malaysia, and I've been to Thailand, and then all around Australia and New Zealand as well. I travel probably once a month normally.
And if you love that, that's great. So, 3M is just sounding better and better with each question. Now, the last question that we've got, which is again about 3M, does 3M care about your mental health? For example, the workload that you have, does it ever get too much, or are they quite good with managing workload and other commitments that you have in your life?
Yeah, and that's a very pertinent point these days with mental health being really respected for what it is. And I think for many years that mental health has not had that recognition. It's been considered like a weakness in someone. So it's terrific. Yes, 3M's really supportive. We're allowed to work from home if we want, or we can go into the office. They're very relaxed, whatever you feel comfortable doing. We don't get micromanaged, so they have a theory that is hire good people and leave them alone. If you feel like you need to talk to someone, there is a facility we have. It's called EAP, which stands for Employee Assistance Program, and you can ring them up free of charge. 3M will pay for it, and talk to counsellors. So that's something that they do. But you can reach out anytime to anybody in HR or your boss and say, look, I'm feeling really stressed, and they're very happy to support some stress leave, time off, whatever is required. Very good in that respect.
Fantastic. Look, I welcome Tony or Kelsey to come on board and make any final comments. I've read out all the questions that I could see in the chat. If there was any last minute questions, you've probably got about 30 seconds to quickly type them in. But look, I think it's been fantastic. It's wonderful to hear about your experience. It's been really inspiring, and just a wonderful way to spend the evening. So I know on behalf of all the students here tonight, I'll give you a lovely round of applause. Any last comments, Tony or Kelsey? I'm just conscious of the time.
Yep. No, I'd just like to say thank you I came in a couple of minutes late, but I really enjoyed that talk. It was wonderful to hear how you got where you are and to see the wonderful things that you've been doing. That just something simple like writing on a dressing that can make such a difference. To be able to come up with that idea and move it through the process was wonderful and inspiring. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Yeah, and I agree. And I loved hearing about the design process. And, you know, you identified a need and then went through that whole process. And that's amazing.
Well, look, fantastic. As I said, it's been great to have everybody. Lovely to have you here tonight, Caroline. I'm conscious we're approaching that 9 o'clock mark, so in the evening, so I know some of us might be a bit tired. So happy to pass on your best wishes. If people, some of the chat messages are coming through of applause and thank yous. So if people would like to say goodbye via the chat function, you know, we're reading that now, but you're welcome to log off as well. We're recording this session and I'll be providing some information about how we can access the recording in the next few days. But as I said, wonderful to have everybody turn up and participate in a great evening of learning and inspiration. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Our participants are slowly just logging off now. I don't know if you can see the participant numbers, but people are just logging off now.
Can I ask a quick question, Caroline?
Yeah.
You can stop the recording, Kate. Sorry, Lachlan.
That's right. I was just wondering, in what fields outside of medicine does 3